The victory that changed everything. The entire college ground was shaking with cheers. Students climbed the fences, threw their arms in the air, and waved our college flags like we'd won a war. And in a way, we had. Our team, the underdogs, the misfits, the ones no one believed in, had just won the biggest tournament of the year. We were champions. I still remember the sound of that final whistle. The moment the ball hit the net and the referee blew loud and clear. My teammates collapsed to their knees in disbelief, and I just stood there, frozen, my hands on my head. It didn't feel real until the crowd stormed the field and lifted me on their shoulders. It was the kind of high no drug could give you. I had trained for this, bled for it, sacrificed sleep, comfort, even my studies. And now I had made my college proud. That night was ours. We were taken to the stage. A tall man in a blazer handed us the gleaming silver trophy. Cameras flashed. My name was called out as the best player of the tournament. I looked into the crowd, hoping to find familiar eyes, and there she was. She stood near the back, not cheering like the rest, but watching me with an unreadable expression. She wasn't clapping. She wasn't even smiling. Just staring. A girl like her didn't need to scream to be noticed. She was silence and mystery wrapped in beauty. She wasn't the kind you met in crowded canteens or boring lectures. She was the kind who walked alone, listened to music none of us understood, and wore heartbreak like perfume. I had known about her before that night. Everyone had. She was a year senior, barely seen in class, but often the topic of late-night hostile gossip. Some called her wild, some broken, but all of us, in one way or another, were drawn to her. I didn't expect her to come up to me, but she did. After the ceremony, while I was still drenched in sweat and glory, I saw her walking toward me. Her heels clicked softly on the pavement. A thin black dress clung to her body like it was made just for her. The floodlights from the stadium behind her made her look like she had stepped out of a dream. "You played well," she said, her voice calm and low. "Thanks," I replied, suddenly nervous. She tilted her head slightly, a faint smirk tugging at the corner of her lips. "Didn't think you had it in you." Neither did they. I laughed, trying to hide the fact that my heart was beating faster now than it did during the match. That was it. She turned and walked away, but later that night, as we celebrated at the after-party in one of the seniors' apartments, she was there again. With a glass of wine in her hand and eyes that never stopped scanning the room. People moved around her, tried to talk, tried to impress, but she barely acknowledged anyone, and then her eyes found me again. I don't know what gave me the courage, but I walked up to her. We talked, or maybe I talked, and she just listened. With that same unreadable gaze, she leaned in close when she spoke, close enough that I could smell her perfume, jasmine, and danger. Every word from her lips felt deliberate, as if she knew exactly what strings she was pulling. When I offered her a drink, she said no. "But if you're free, come outside. I hate loud music." I followed her like a moth to a flame. Outside, under the quiet night sky, she lit a cigarette and offered me one. I refused. She laughed. "You don't look like the kind who breaks rules," she said. "Maybe you just haven't looked closely enough." That made her pause. For a second, the smirk dropped, and something softer flickered in her eyes. She stepped closer. So close that I could feel the heat of her body. "I saw you after the match," she whispered. "You looked like a man who gets what he wants." I didn't answer. I couldn't, because in that moment, I didn't know what I wanted more, her lips or her story. She kissed me, and just like that, everything changed. What began as a celebration of my biggest victory turned into the start of my greatest heartbreak, just for the neither lips tasted like wine and smoke, but underneath that was something more dangerous, an emptiness I didn't recognize then. That night, in the silence behind the party, she didn't say much. She didn't have to. Her hands spoke more than her words ever would. When she kissed me, it wasn't gentle or shy, it was urgent, deliberate, like I was something she wanted to consume. We didn't talk about what it meant. She didn't ask me if I liked her, if I was seeing anyone, or even what my name was. She already knew. I had just won the college tournament. After all, I was the flavor of the month. And she tasted everything once before throwing it away. When I woke up the next morning, I was still in my clothes from the party, lying on the edge of her bed. Her room was dark, even though it was well into the day. Thick curtains blocked out the sun. She was already awake, sitting by the window, smoking again, staring outside like the world wasn't interesting anymore. I sat up, unsure. "Hey," I said. she glanced at me. No smile, no warmth, just a nod. You should probably go before anyone sees. I froze. It wasn't cruel, it was casual. Like I had overstayed my welcome. Like last night had been nothing. Oh, yeah, right, I mumbled, grabbing my shoes. I'll see you around. She didn't answer, but I did see her again. A few days later, I found her leaning against the wall near the library, arms folded, waiting for me. She looked bored, like even being seen with me was a temporary distraction. "Wanna come over?" she asked. Just like that. "No, how are you?" "No, I missed you." Just that offer. Her voice was soft but sharp, like velvet over broken glass, and I said yes. Every time she called, I went. Every time she touched me, I gave in. She didn't want to date me. She never walked with me through campus or sat with me in the canteen. If people saw us together, they assumed we were just friends, if that. She didn't want to be seen with me, but she wanted me behind closed doors. Her kisses were fire, her touch addictive. She made me feel wanted, but only when it was convenient for her, and like a fool, I mistook it for love. I told myself she was just guarded, that maybe she'd been hurt before. I thought if I stayed, if I was patient, she'd open up. She'd eventually say, "I need you, not just your body, but your soul." But that never came. Instead, it became a cycle. She'd text me at odd hours, "You up? Come over. I can't sleep." And every time, no matter how tired I was, how much I had to do, I went, because I had fallen hard. She never asked about my day. She didn't care about my dreams or what scared me at night. When I told her about my mother's health, she barely nodded. When I told her I got selected for the regional football team, she didn't even smile. Her replies were always short, always detached, until her hands reached for me. That's when she came alive. She liked touching me, liked the way I looked at her like she was the only girl in the world. She liked the way I made her feel powerful, wanted, needed, but she never gave any of that back. Sometimes, after we were done, I'd try to hold her. She'd shrug me off, saying she needed space. I'd try to talk. She'd light another cigarette. Once, I asked her what we were. She turned her head and said, "Don't ruin it by overthinking." I laughed, pretending it didn't hurt. But it did. Every time I left her place, I felt a little more hollow, like I had given her another piece of me I'd never get back. And she never seemed affected. It wasn't just physical, it was psychological. I started needing her. Even though she never truly saw me, I still waited for her texts like they were oxygen. I didn't want anyone else. I couldn't even look at another girl. She had claimed every inch of my heart, even if she never asked for it. My friends noticed. They warned me, "Bro, she's just using you. You're not the only guy she's calling. She doesn't even act like you matter." But I didn't care. Or maybe I did, but I didn't know how to walk away, because deep down, I thought maybe I could be the one to change her. Maybe if I just held on long enough, she'd see me. But every night, when I left her room and walked the cold, silent corridors back to my hostel, I felt more like a stranger to myself. One night, I asked her, "Do you even like me?" She looked up from her phone, blinked slowly. "Why does it matter?" "Because I want more than this." She sighed, like I had inconvenienced her. "You knew what this was from the start." "No, I didn't," I whispered. "I thought it meant something." She stood up, annoyed. "Don't turn this into some Bollywood story, okay? It's just fun. Don't complicate it. Fun." That word hit me like a slap. What was fun for her had become heartbreak for me, but I stayed. Because sometimes even pain feels better than emptiness. She liked the idea of me, liked the attention, liked knowing she could call and I would come running. But she never liked me. Not really. Not the way I needed. I was just her escape from boredom, her late-night entertainment. A body she could use and send away without consequence. And the saddest part, I let her, a love I invented. They say love makes fools of us all. But I wasn't just a fool, I was the architect of a dream that never existed. I built a love story in my head, brick by imaginary brick, with a girl who had only ever given me fragments of herself. I saw signs where there were none. I heard promises in her silence. I loved a version of her that only existed in my mind. I started filling in the blanks she left. When she didn't call, I told myself she was just busy. When she forgot my birthday, I convinced myself she had something big planned later. When she kissed me without looking into my eyes, I told myself she was just tired. I turned red flags into riddles I wanted to solve. I thought I could earn her love if I just stayed long enough, loved hard enough, broke quietly enough, but love doesn't work like that. I remember once, after another night at her apartment, I stayed longer than usual. She had fallen asleep, or pretended to, her back to me. I lay beside her in the dark, listening to the rhythm of her breathing, trying to believe I belonged there. I whispered, "I love you." She didn't respond, and yet I smiled because even her silence I took as hope. I started writing about her in notebooks, on napkins, in the margins of my textbooks. I wrote poems, confessions, daydreams. I told no one, but I poured every unsaid word into pages that no one would read. I imagined a future with her. I imagined walking through the city hand in hand. I imagined her meeting my parents. I imagined waking up next to her in a small apartment, with broken windows and 2 cups of coffee on the counter. I imagined her choosing me, but she never chose me. One evening, I caught her laughing with another guy in the parking lot. Not a polite chuckle, the kind of laugh I used to think was reserved for me. Her hand brushed his shoulder, her eyes sparkling in a way I hadn't seen in weeks. When she saw me, she didn't flinch. She didn't even offer an excuse. She just waved casually and went back to her conversation. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, wondering what I was doing. Wondering if I had ever been anything more than a temporary escape to her. Wondering if every smile she gave me was also given to someone else the next night. I should have walked away then. I should have blocked her number, deleted her photos, erased the memory of her perfume from my sheets, but I didn't, because I was addicted, not to her, but to the idea of her, to the fantasy I had written. In my story, she would realize my worth. She would wake up one morning and feel everything I had been feeling for months. She'd cry and confess and finally hold me like I was home. I believed in a turning point that never came. Days turned to weeks. The calls became rarer, the kisses colder. She stopped asking me to come over altogether. When I messaged her, she replied with emojis or one-word answers. Sometimes she didn't reply at all, but still, I waited. Still, I made excuses. She's just going through something. She's scared of getting close. She loves me but doesn't know how to show it. My friends had stopped bringing her up altogether. I think they were tired of watching me set myself on fire for someone who didn't even offer a matchstick. One night, I saw her at a campus party. She was dancing with someone else, laughing, her arms wrapped around his neck like they were already familiar. I stood in the corner, a drink in my hand, trying not to watch, but I did. I watched every smile she gave him, every gentle tug of his shirt, every kiss she placed near his ear, and I broke, quietly, internally, the way boys are taught to. I left without saying goodbye. That night, I walked aimlessly through the city streets, the air cold and biting. My phone buzzed. It was her. A single message. That was it. No apology. No explanation. Just dismissal. It hit me then. She knew. She had always known how deeply I felt. And she didn't care. I wasn't her lover. I was her possession. Her comfort blanket. The boy who would always be there, no matter how many times she pushed him away. But I was tired of holding on to someone who never held me back. Tired of writing love letters that ended up in the trash of my mind. Tired of being the only one who felt anything real. I didn't reply to her message. For the first time, I didn't chase, but that didn't mean it didn't hurt. The next few days felt like grief, like mourning someone who was still alive. I walked through campus like a ghost, smiled at professors when I needed to, sat through practice with an empty mind. I deleted our pictures, archived our chats, but nothing could archive the way she had made me feel. I kept wondering, was it really all fake? Were the late-night talks, the quiet kisses, the shared silences, were they all just placeholders for someone else? Or was I just easy to get, easy to forget? And the worst part, she never once came to find me, not even to ask why I disappeared, not to apologize, not to explain, because in her world, I had never truly mattered, and that truth hurt more than anything. It's funny how the heart hears what it wants to, even when the truth is screaming in your face. Looking back now, I realize the signs were always there, scattered like broken glass across the path. I insisted on walking barefoot, But I was too blinded by hope, by longing, by the image of who I thought she was, to notice that I was bleeding every step of the way. I remember the first time I saw her flirting with someone else. We were in the cafeteria. I had saved a seat for her, like I always did, and she had messaged me saying she'd be there in 5. But instead, I watched from across the room as she leaned across a table, laughing a little too hard at a guy's joke, her hand brushing against his. That same touch she used to give me when no one was watching. I waited for her. She never came. When I brought it up later that night, she just shrugged. "You're not my boyfriend," she said casually. "I'm allowed to talk to whoever I want." She wasn't wrong. But it wasn't the words that hurt, it was the way she said them, like my feelings were inconvenient. Like I was the one making things complicated. Still, I stayed. Another time, we were walking through campus late at night. The air was cold, and I offered her my jacket. She took it without a word. We walked in silence, and I reached for her hand. She pulled away. "People might see," she whispered. I didn't ask why that mattered. I just nodded and kept my hands in my pockets, pretending I wasn't hurt, pretending I didn't want the whole world to know she was mine, even if I wasn't hers. I told myself she was just private, that she wasn't ready, that maybe she was scared of commitment because someone had broken her before, but deep down, a voice inside me whispered something else, something I refused to listen to. "She doesn't love you." I silenced that voice every time it spoke. There were nights she'd call me crying. I'd rush over, holding her while she trembled in my arms. But she never told me what was wrong, never shared anything real. I was just comfort, a human blanket, a warm body to silence the chaos inside her, even if only for a night, and once she felt better, she'd turn away. Emotionally vacant again. No thank you. No closeness, just cold air between our backs. One time, I got sick, really sick. I missed practice, missed class, was bedridden for days. I messaged her, telling her I needed her, that I just wanted to see her. She didn't reply. No call, no check-in. 3 days later, she texted, "Hey, you alive?" I told myself it was her way of caring, that maybe she was just awkward with emotions. Maybe this was love in her language, but love doesn't abandon you when you're at your weakest. Love shows up. She never showed up, not really. She never asked about my past, never wanted to know what kept me up at night, never cared about the things that made me, me. She only came close when she needed something: attention, warmth, distraction. And I gave it to her, again and again, hoping one day she'd give something back, but she never did, and I ignored it. I ignored the way she looked at other guys. I ignored the sudden mood swings, the hours of silence, the way she dismissed my feelings like they were a joke. I ignored the way she made me feel like I wasn't enough, no matter how much I gave. One evening, we were in her room. I had brought her a gift, nothing expensive, just a bracelet I saw at a street stall. It reminded me of her. She opened it, glanced at it for a second, then set it aside without a word. No smile. "No thank you." She went right back to scrolling on her phone. I stared at the box in her hand. "Do you like it?" I asked. She looked up, annoyed. "It's fine." "Why are you always so emotional about things?" Emotional, that word stuck with me like thorns in my chest. I was emotional, yes, because I loved her, because I cared, because every moment with her felt like something fragile I was trying desperately to protect, even when she was the one shattering it. And yet, I stayed because I had convinced myself that love was supposed to be hard, that if I held on just a little longer, she'd finally soften, that if I endured the cold, one day she'd warm up and say, "I choose you." But love shouldn't feel like waiting to be chosen. Love shouldn't feel like begging. There were so many moments, so many tiny cruelties that should have been enough to make me walk away. But I didn't, because walking away meant accepting the truth that she never loved me, that I was never anything more than a temporary fix, a body, a background character in her story. I started losing myself. My grades slipped. I missed practice more often. I stopped talking to my friends. They had grown tired of trying to rescue me. I don't blame them. I had tied my worth to someone who never saw value in me, and the saddest part, she knew exactly how much I loved her. She knew that one text from her could pull me out of any darkness, even if she was the one who pushed me there, and she used it. She used me, not out of hatred, not even malice, but out of indifference. She didn't care enough to hate me. She just didn't care, and I ignored that too, because it was easier to believe in a lie than to face the truth, but lies have a way of unraveling, and mine was about to collapse. It happened on a Thursday evening. The air was heavy with approaching rain, the kind that makes the sky bruise before it pours. I had just wrapped up practice, mud still clinging to my shoes, and I felt that old ache in my chest, that familiar urge to see her, to hear her voice, even if she only gave me a few careless minutes of it. She hadn't texted in days, but I told myself she was busy, tired, or just in one of her moods. I had almost convinced myself of that, until I saw her. I was walking past the parking lot, phone in hand, about to type, "Hey, are you okay?" when I stopped cold. There she was, leaning against his car, some guy I didn't know, taller, older maybe, confident in the way I never was around her. He had one hand on the door and the other on her waist. She was laughing. Not the polite, half-hearted laugh she used to give me when I told dumb jokes. No, this was real, open, free. Her head tilted back, her fingers ran through her hair, and then she kissed him, right there, right out in the open, not behind closed doors, not hidden, not in the dark of her room where I had always been tucked away like a shameful secret. I froze, my feet wouldn't move, my breath caught somewhere between a gasp and a choke. I wanted to scream, cry, run, but I just stood there like a fool watching the truth unfold in front of me, raw and unforgiving. She didn't see me, or maybe she did and didn't care. That was worse. That night, it rained, a hard, merciless rain that soaked the world and mirrored the chaos in my chest. I didn't go back to my hostel. I walked aimlessly. My jersey clung to my skin, heavy with water and heartbreak. I ended up at the same field where we had won the tournament weeks ago, the field where she first kissed me, where everything had begun. Now it felt cursed, empty, like even the earth wanted to forget. I sat in the middle of it, knees pulled to my chest, and cried. I don't remember the last time I had cried before that, but that night, I broke. The tears weren't loud. They came in silence, the way real grief does. My heart felt like it had been ripped from my chest and crushed under the weight of everything I refused to accept until now. She didn't love me. She never had. I was just someone to fill her time. A convenience. A comfort. A placeholder until someone better came along, and that someone had arrived. I thought about every night I stayed up for her, every lie I told myself, every time I ignored my friends, skipped my responsibilities, abandoned pieces of myself just to keep her interested. What had I been doing? Who had I become? The next day, I didn't show up to class. I didn't go to practice. I didn't check my phone. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about the hundreds of small moments that had led to this collapse, my collapse. Then the message came. I saw you yesterday. No apology. No explanation. No regret. Just that. I stared at the screen, hands trembling, heart thudding in my throat. For a moment, I thought maybe this was it, the moment she would explain, cry, ask me to forgive her, say she made a mistake. But that message was all she sent. I replied, "Why?" She read it, didn't answer. That silence said everything. I realized then that I had been screaming into a void this entire time, throwing love into a bottomless pit and waiting for an echo that never came. It wasn't just heartbreak. It was humiliation. I had allowed myself to be disposable, to be treated like an option, to believe that crumbs were a feast. A few days later, I saw her again on campus, walking beside him, their fingers interlocked, their laughter trailing behind them like a cruel melody. She looked right through me, like I was just another face in the crowd, like I had never meant anything, and maybe I never did. The hardest part wasn't that she loved someone else. It was that she had never loved me. Everything I thought we had was one-sided, a dream I alone had built and lived in. She had simply stepped in and out as she pleased, taking what she wanted and leaving before the dream could ask anything of her. I stopped going to the places we used to meet. I deleted every message. I burned the notebook filled with words I had written for her. I buried the bracelet I had given her beneath the old tree near the football field, an unmarked grave for a love that had never lived. For weeks, I walked around like a ghost. People stopped asking how I was. My friends let me be. They had seen the storm coming long before I did. But even in that storm, there was something I found. Myself. It wasn't instant. It wasn't clean. Healing never is, but somewhere between the sleepless nights and silent mornings, I started to feel again. Not better but real. I started running again, not from the pain, but through it. I practiced. I trained. I picked up my books. I sat through classes. I went out with friends. I forced myself to breathe, even when it hurt. I still saw her sometimes, and every time, it stung a little less, not because I stopped loving her, but because I finally accepted the truth. She never loved me, and that was not my fault. She was broken, in ways I couldn't fix, cold in ways my warmth could never melt. She didn't destroy me because I was weak. She did it because I offered her a heart she never intended to keep, and now, finally, I was taking it back. Letters I never sent after everything fell apart, after the silence, after the last message she never replied to. I started writing, not to publish, not to post, not even to share with friends. I wrote to her, letters she would never read, words she didn't earn. I didn't know what else to do with the pain. It had no place to go, no one to explain itself to. So I gave it a name, her name, and poured it onto paper like blood from a wound that never really closed. The first night you kissed me under the stars like I was a wish come true. But I think I was just a placeholder, wasn't I? That first night, you made me believe something real had begun. You looked at me like I was different, and I believed it. I believed you. But now, I wonder, was it ever real for you? Or was I just convenient? Available? I hate that I still miss that night. I hate that part of me would still go back if you asked what we weren't. We never went out to eat. You never met my friends. I never held your hand in public. You never asked about my childhood or my future or what scared me, but I still called it love. Why? Because I was so hungry to be loved that I mistook crumbs for a feast. You gave me moments, and I turned them into memories. You gave me nothing, and I built everything from it. That's on me. I died standing up that day. People talk about heartbreak like it's poetic. But there was nothing poetic about watching the girl I loved kiss another guy in the same place she once told me she couldn't be seen with me. I didn't cry then. Not until I got home. Not until I was alone. And when I did, it wasn't just about you, it was about me. About the version of myself I lost while chasing someone who never turned around. Did you ever feel anything for me? Even for a second? Was there ever a moment where your heart paused and whispered my name? Did you ever miss me when I wasn't there? Did I matter at all? Or was I just noise? Background music? The boy you called when no one else picked up? I'll never know. You'll never say. And maybe that's worse than a no. You got what you wanted. A boy who would run to you no matter what. A body to hold when the nights got lonely. Eyes that worshipped you. Hands that held you even when you didn't deserve it. You broke me without ever touching my heart, and still, I hope you find what you're looking for, not because I forgive you, but because I know how it feels to search for something in others that you can't find in yourself. I wrote dozens more. I didn't keep most of them. Some I tore up. Some I burned. A few I left folded and hidden in the drawer of my old study desk, pages yellowing with time and sadness. Writing to her helped me say what I was too afraid to when she was in front of me. Helped me admit that I was angry, not just at her but at myself. Angry for loving someone who never loved me. Angry for needing her so badly I forgot to need myself, but it also helped me understand her, not justify her, not excuse her, but see her as human. She wasn't a villain. She wasn't heartless. She was just broken in a different way. She was used to being wanted for her body, not her soul, and so she gave what she thought people wanted. She gave what she could. I was just the collateral damage, and while that doesn't make it right, it made it easier to let go. It took time. There were nights I still checked my phone, half hoping she would text. There were songs I couldn't listen to without thinking of her. I'd pass by her building and feel my stomach turn. I'd hear someone laugh like her and have to steady myself, but slowly, her name stopped burning, her absence became normal, and I began to exist outside of her. I returned to football. I studied harder. I reconnected with friends I had ignored. I found new people who asked how my day was, who celebrated my wins, who saw me for more than what I could offer. But most importantly, I started writing for me, not letters, not pain, just thoughts. Truths, stories of a boy who learned to love deeply and then learned to walk away. One night, months later, I went back to the field, the same one where it all started. where I first kissed her, where I later cried, soaked in rain and heartbreak, but this time I was dry. I stood in the center, closed my eyes, and said her name one last time, not with longing, not with anger, just acceptance. She had been a chapter, one that nearly ruined me, but not the end of my book. I had so much more left to write, and she was just one of the letters I never had to send. They tell you time heals everything. They don't tell you how. They don't mention the days you feel fine, even hopeful, only to collapse again the next night over a memory you thought you'd buried. They don't prepare you for the random triggers: her favorite song in a store, a whiff of her perfume on a stranger, a jacket that looks like one she used to wear. Healing doesn't come like sunlight flooding a dark room. It comes like a flickering candle, sometimes steady, sometimes almost gone. After the collapse, I thought I'd bounce back quickly. I returned to routine classes, practice, assignments. I laughed again with friends. I joined a small college trip and even flirted with the idea of meeting new people. On the surface, I was fine, but healing, it doesn't live on the surface. I'd lie in bed at night, staring at the ceiling fan, wondering if she ever thought about me, if she ever missed me, if she even remembered what we had, what I thought we had. Some nights I hated her, some nights I hated myself, some nights I just felt nothing at all, and that scared me most. I remember one evening in particular. It had been weeks since I'd seen her or thought of her clearly. I was walking back from a solo run, the kind I took when my chest felt too tight for company. The sun was setting, the sky dipped in colors that made even pain feel poetic. I thought, maybe I'm okay now. Then I passed the bench, that bench, the one outside her building, the one I'd sit on while waiting for her, full of anticipation, not knowing whether she'd answer the door or leave me waiting. I stopped. The memories came like a flood: her leaning on my shoulder, her laugh echoing through the night air, the way I used to look at her like she was the entire galaxy disguised as one girl. My throat tightened. I sat on the bench again, not because I wanted to, but because part of me needed to say goodbye in a way I never really had, and I cried, not the loud kind, just quiet, exhausted tears. Grief not for what we were, but for who I became in loving her. The boy who begged, the boy who waited, the boy who thought being chosen was the only way to matter. Healing is not linear. Some days you walk forward, some days you fall backward, and some days you simply stand still, trying to breathe through the weight of what you've lived. But over time, the steps forward outnumber the steps back. I started noticing things I hadn't before: the way the morning light looked on my study desk, the thrill of scoring a goal again, the softness in the voices of friends who stayed even when I pushed them away. I started writing not about her anymore, but about me, my hopes, my fears, my journey. I stopped waiting for her to text, stopped checking who she was with, stopped tying my worth to her attention, and somewhere in that stillness, I found peace. Not total peace, not perfection, but progress. I met someone new eventually, a girl with kindness in her eyes and laughter that didn't feel like a weapon. She asked questions. She listened. She didn't try to possess me or use me. She saw me, and though my heart was cautious, bruised, hesitant, I started to feel again. But I didn't rush, because healing is not rushing into someone new to forget someone old. It's remembering how to love yourself again. It's waking up and not hurting. It's seeing your reflection and not blaming it. It's knowing you survived something that once felt like it would destroy you. That's what healing became for me, a slow return to self. And when I thought of her again, which still happens sometimes, it didn't burn. It didn't ache. It was just a story I had lived, a lesson written in pain but sealed in growth, and in the end, that was enough. I let her go. Finally, it was a quiet morning when it finally happened, not with a breakdown, not with tears, not even with bitterness. Just a quiet, still realization. I don't love her anymore, not in the way I used to, not in the way that kept me up at night, writing imaginary conversations and rewriting memories to feel less painful. It wasn't sudden. It was the product of countless moments where I had chosen to show up for myself instead of waiting for her, of every step I had taken since she stopped walking with me, of every time I told myself I deserved more and actually believed it. I saw her again one last time. It was on campus, near the old cafe where we had once met on rainy afternoons. She was sitting alone, sipping something warm, phone in hand, distant as always. She hadn't changed much. Same aloof expression, same effortless charm. The kind of girl who looked like she belonged in stories, just not the ones that end well. She glanced up and saw me, our eyes met. For a moment, we were just two people who once shared something unspoken, something broken. She smiled, not with regret, not with apology, just politely like you smile at a stranger you vaguely recognize, and I smiled back. That was it. No words, no desperate final conversation, no attempt to resurrect what had already died. Just a silent agreement that whatever I thought we had was over, and for the first time, it didn't hurt. I didn't feel that familiar ache in my chest. I didn't feel small or replaced. I didn't wonder who she was talking to now, or whether he made her laugh the way I used to try so hard to. I just felt free, because I had already let go of her 1,000 times before that moment. Every time I chose to heal instead of chase. Every time I wrote about her pain and didn't romanticize it. Every time I forgave myself for loving her. I used to think closure came from the other person through apologies, explanations, maybe even guilt. But now I know better. Closure comes when you accept the truth that she didn't love me, the truth that I loved someone who was never really mine, the truth that I am still worthy of real love. So I walked away not just from that calf, but from the chapter of my life she had dominated for far too long, and I didn't look back because there's nothing for me there anymore. No more what ifs, no more longing. Just lessons, scars, and the quiet pride of having survived her. I went back to the field that evening. The sky was turning orange. The wind was soft. I sat in the center alone, peaceful. It was the same place where I had won, where I had fallen, where I had cried and bled and hoped and broken. Now, it was just a field again. She no longer lived in these places. She no longer lived in me. And as I stood up, brushed the grass from my jeans, and walked toward the fading sun, I realized something even more powerful than love. I had found myself again, not the boy who waited, not the one who begged to be seen, but the one who had endured, healed, grown, the boy who no longer needed her to feel complete. So this is my goodbye to her, not a bitter one, not angry, just final. She was a season cold, beautiful and fleeting, but I am a lifetime, and I'm just getting started.